The Dyatlov Mystery. Welcome to NDJWonders, a channel under NDJProductions. Today, we're exploring one of the most unsettling real events ever recorded in modern history. It begins in the winter of 1959, deep in Russia's Ural Mountains, where 9 experienced hikers vanished under circumstances so strange that investigators were left with more questions than answers. This is the Dyatlov Pass incident, a mystery built on real evidence, unexplained injuries, and a chain of events that has never been fully solved. The story starts with Igor Dyatlov, a skilled mountaineer leading a group of university students on a challenging expedition. Their goal was simple: reach the peak of a Torton, document the journey, and return home. But as the days passed, weather turned worse. Snowstorms, brutal winds, and sub-zero temperatures closed in around them. Their final campsite was found on the eastern slope of a mountain the local Mansi people called Kolat, meaning Dead Mountain. At first, nothing about the campsite seemed unusual until investigators looked closer. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Not unzipped, not torn by wind, cut deliberately. The hikers fled into the frozen night, wearing almost no clothing. Some had only socks, others had no shoes at all. Their tracks led downhill, scattered and frantic, as if they fled from something sudden and terrifying. But there's more. When search teams followed the tracks into the forest, they found the first 2 bodies under a cedar tree. Both were barefoot. Both showed signs of extreme cold. But branches above them were broken, suggesting the men had climbed desperately, maybe searching for something, or trying to escape something that left no trace in the snow. A few hundred meters away, rescuers found 3 more boats. They were positioned as if trying to return to the tent. Their clothing was thin. Their faces were frozen in expressions of exhaustion and pain. At this point, investigators assumed the group simply panicked during a storm. But what happens next is even stranger. Months later, when the snow melted and deeper layers of the forest became accessible, searchers found the remaining 4 hikers in a ravine. Their injuries didn't match a simple fall. One hiker had a shattered ribcage. Another had a crushed skull. 2 others had internal damage so severe that a forensic doctor compared it to a car accident. Yet there were no external wounds, no signs of struggle, no evidence of a fight. Their bones were broken from the inside, but their skin remained intact. This detail became one of the most haunting pieces of evidence in the entire case. However, the real surprise comes next. Some of the hikers' clothing tested positive for elevated radiation. It wasn't enough to be lethal, but it was enough to raise questions. Rumors spread quickly. Some believed the hikers stumbled into a secret weapons test. Others believed they encountered military flares that caused panic. But none of these theories fully matched the evidence. The tent was cut from the inside. The injuries were unusual. The radiation was present, and the hikers fled into deadly cold as if running from something invisible. To understand this better, investigators examined the hikers' diaries. They described laughter, optimism, and normal daily routines. There were no signs of fear, no warnings of conflict, no mention of strange encounters. The last entry was calm. Then everything changed overnight. The shift from normal camp life to catastrophic flight happened in minutes, and nothing in the journals explains why. But there's another twist. When experts recreated the scene years later, they discovered something important. The layout of the tent, the slope of the mountain, and the direction of the wind created a rare natural phenomenon known as a katabatic wind. This type of wind can roar down a mountainside with sudden, brutal force. It can flatten tents, disorient hikers, and create a terrifying, low-frequency roar. Some believe the hikers mistook it for an avalanche or an approaching threat. But the tracks showed no signs of an avalanche, and the tent remained partially standing. What happens afterward is even more mysterious. Some scientists proposed the infrasound theory. Under certain wind conditions, the mountain's shape can generate low-frequency vibrations that trigger panic in humans. The sound is below the range of normal hearing, but it can cause nausea, dread, and overwhelming fear. If this happened that night, the hikers may have fled in a state of confusion, convinced they were in danger even when no physical threat existed. It's a scientific possibility supported by real research, but it still doesn't explain the severe injuries found later. In contrast, another group of researchers suggested a rare type of small slab avalanche that could have struck the tent without leaving typical avalanche traces. A block of compact snow could have crushed part of the tent, injuring some hikers and forcing the others to evacuate immediately. This theory explains panic. It explains injuries, and it explains the rushed escape. But even this idea has gaps, because investigators at the time searched for avalanche signs and found none. What's even stranger is the condition of the ravine bodies. 2 of them were missing eyes. 1 was missing a tongue. While this fueled decades of speculation, forensic experts later concluded these injuries were caused by natural decomposition in running water. Still, the combination of location, injuries, and missing features added layers of mystery that fed the legend. As the decades passed, the Dyatlov Pass incident became one of the most analyzed cold cases in history. Historians reviewed Soviet documents, scientists built models of the terrain, mountaineers recreated the journey step by step, and every few years, a new theory emerged. Some offered natural explanations. Others suggested military involvement. A few invoked wildlife, though no animal tracks were found near the camp. Even today, there is no single answer that fits every piece of evidence. Yet one thing remains clear. The hikers were skilled, experienced, and prepared. They had survived countless expeditions before. Whatever happened that night was powerful enough to make them abandon shelter, flee into deadly cold, and become separated across the mountain in a matter of hours. The Dyatlov mystery remains unsolved, not because the evidence is lacking, but because the evidence contradicts itself. It's a puzzle with too many edges missing, a real event wrapped in fear, confusion, and incomplete clues. And as long as pieces remain unexplained, the story will continue to haunt researchers, travelers, and anyone who steps into the wilderness of the Ural Mountains. If you enjoyed this video, visit the links below for more content from NDJ Productions and NDJ Wonders.